عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته. بسم الله بنا نستعين الحمد لله والصلاة على رسول الله. Today we are pleased to have Mr. Derose, the principal of Glasgow Middle School. So Mr. Derose, you are welcome to our Islamic Center. And this community we have. As we said, we have a meeting with Shawn Derose. He's the principal of Glasgow Middle School. Let me give you a brief bio of our guest. Mr. Shawn Derose, he earned his master's degree in arts in educational administration from Ohio State University in Columbus, Ohio, and his Bachelor of Science degree in education from also Ohio University in Athens. He was named in 2014 Outstanding Assistant Principal in Virginia. In spring 2015, Mr. Derose was named the principal of Glasgow Middle School. Prior to his current position, he served as assistant principal at Jeb Stuart High School and Thomas Jefferson High School for Science and Technology in Alexandria, Virginia. He also served as the Director of Students Administration Activities from 2010 to 2013 and also to Thomas Jefferson High School. Mr. Derose is an active member of the National Association of Secondary School Principals, where he was presented at their national conference and contributed to the AP Insight, the quarterly newsletter of the NACAP, Assistant Principal Leadership Center. Mr. Shawn and his wife Mary Kate have 3 children, Claire, Reagan, and Jack. Mary Kate also works for the Fairfax County Public Schools as a Title I reading specialist at Woodley Hill Elementary School. The forum will be in this format. Mr. Derose will speak 20 minutes, then we'll give you a session for Q&A, inshallah ta'ala. Mr. Derose, you have the mic. Thank you.
Thank you. It's great to see so many faces, familiar faces being here, students and parents. Thank you for the warm introduction. Let me tell you guys, for those who are unfamiliar with Glasgow, let me give you a little brief overview. I have some notes here. I'm going to reference my computer, but as you know, Glasgow Middle School is about 3 miles down the road. It is the largest public middle school in the state of Virginia. Currently, we have 1,705 kids, grades 6th, 7th, and 8th. So needless to say, it is a very big middle school. We are a very diverse middle school as well. The majority of our students, or almost the majority of our students, 47% of our students are Hispanic, 25% are white. We have about 11% Asian, or 15% Asian, and about 11% black. But that's just their ethnicity. Obviously, when it comes to many different countries and many different languages, which I'll talk a little bit about, the school, our students, about 1,705 students, they come from 70 different countries. 70 different countries. The largest, obviously, being born here in the United States, but then the next largest area would be Central and South America. We have 70 different countries, but we also have 55 different languages that are spoken at our school. I only speak one language. I didn't even know that there were 54 other languages other than English. So there's 55 total languages. Obviously, about 45% of our students at home speak Spanish. About 22% of our students speak English at home. And about 10% of our students speak Arabic at home. Glasgow was not always this big. This is something that has been recent over the past 6 or 7 years. I think largely due to our dedicated teachers and our staff. But the school has grown immensely over the past 6 and 7 years. Back in 2009, so you're talking, what, 6, 7 years ago, we had a population of less than 1,200 kids, so less than 1,200 kids. Here we are, 6, 7 years later, and we've grown by about, what, 600 kids almost, 500 and plus kids, and it's only getting bigger. So a large part of that reason is because of some of the great things that we're doing at Glasgow, which I also want to talk to you guys about. But a little bit more background about the school. We talked about the different countries, right? The different languages being spoken at home, the diversity of learners. But as you know, living in this area, right across, down the street and right across the street in the Colmore area, we have a large number of our students, about 65% of our students who qualify for free and reduced lunch. So many of our students are living in poverty. We have a large number of of our students, about 25% of our students, a little more than 25% of our students, who are still in the beginning stages of learning the English language. And yet at the same time, Glasgow is an advanced academic center. So meaning we have some of the best and brightest kids that come from all over the area also come to Glasgow. But Glasgow is a true representation of this community. You guys know the community just as well, if not better than I do. So you think about just the diversity of students, the diversity of people living here, from different neighborhoods, from different backgrounds, and from really different levels of income too. So needless to say, if you think about the United Nations, Glasgow is the United Nations of all middle schools. It is something that is truly a very special place. But yet at the same time, we do have our challenges, which I want to talk to you about a little bit as well. So let's talk a little bit about who we are as a school. We have a vision statement that we crafted up over the past year. And it really talks about 3 different things. We talk about us being, number one, a community, right? And a community that is really empowered by our diversity. Some people will see all the different types of students that we have, all the different types of ethnicity and languages and races, and they'll see that as conflict. It's not. It's not at Glasgow. We really try to embrace our diversity at that school. We're successful. Our faculty and teachers are dedicated, and they are very successful in the sense that we recognize the hard work that each and every one of our teachers do, and that inspires us. So we're inspired by our success. But we also really are committed to always learning, always getting better. Not just we expect that out of our students, but we expect that out of our teachers. Hopefully, we expect that out of the principal, too, is that we always try and get better. We always try and keep learning. There are really 3 special programs that I think make Glasgow unique. The first is an AVID program. We are a national demonstration school. So let me first talk about what AVID is. AVID is this program that identifies students who come from at-risk backgrounds, and they recognize these students are very intelligent, and for whatever reason may not have an advocate at home, may not have a lot of parent involvement. So we really identify these kids, and we push them and give them skills to be successful in honors level classes. So we inspire them to hopefully prepare and get ready for college. That's our AVID program, which stands for Advancement via Individual Determination. We are a national demonstration school, which means of all these students, of all the schools that have this program, and there are thousands, hundreds of thousands around the country, Glasgow's school is the model. We're the top 1% of all AVID programs in the country. That says a lot, and I think our students do a great job, not only at Glasgow, but when they transition to Stewart, it helps them be prepared to take honors level classes at high school and then transition and be successful into college, which is what our ultimate goal is. We are also an international baccalaureate world school, we have a program that is unique called the Middle Years Program. And the Middle Years Program really highlights and drives a lot of our curriculum. And IB is something that's world-renowned. There are a handful of schools here in Fairfax County that is an IB school, but there are schools worldwide that have this curriculum. And really we talk about pushing our kids. Rigorous learning is what we'll talk about. We talk a lot about the students being the main focus instead of, what we may expect a teacher standing in front of the classroom and teaching. We really try and have students more engaged, student-centered learning. Something very important to us as a school community is, especially in today's day and age, is having an understanding of different views and international perspective, not just from different countries, but obviously different cultures, different religions, and that's a theme in our learning, which hopefully makes us better global citizens. And we also learn, this sounds a little funny, but we also learn how to learn at this age, right? How do I best learn? Is it by note-taking? Is it by rereading? Whatever it is, but we help students, I think, learn how they best learn. Sometimes they realize it, and sometimes they don't at that age, but that's one of our goals. And the last one, really, I think that makes us special, and this is something that we're continuing to get better at. Last year was the first year that what we introduced called Panther Principles, right? We have these Panther Principles that really have a theme around three main ideas: kindness, commitment, and safety. And we embed time, primarily on Mondays and Fridays right now, to really teaching our students all about our Panther Principles. I think because of our diversity, because of our challenges that we have at our school, what we found out is kindness, believe it or not, can mean different things. Commitment can mean different things across our populations, across our students' background. Safety could also mean different things. So really developing a common language as a school of what those things mean, and then embedding time to teach our students how to be kind, how to be committed, and how to be safe. And I can tell you, as someone who is relatively new to Glasgow and middle school in general, that doesn't happen at most schools, of taking instructional time away to teach students 11, 12, 13 years old, 14 years old, the importance of being kind, the importance of being committed, and the importance of being safe. And then finally, the last thing I just want to talk about is, I've talked a lot about our diversity, but we're also diverse, as I said earlier, in how we learn, in the backgrounds of our kids. So we have this advanced academic center that's embedded in our school. So kids from all around Fairfax County, around this area, will come also to Glasgow. As I said, we have about 25% of our students, a little bit above, that are still learning the language. So we have students who are proficient in many different languages, and then we have students who literally just came to this country that speak absolutely no English. We have students who have different styles of learning that may need special accommodations to maximize their learning. We have a terrific department that helps with those students. And then even more importantly, I think, than just the classroom and the academics, we have a very strong after-school program where our students 3 days a week, on Mondays, on Wednesdays, and on Thursdays, they can stay after school with their teacher, and then they can stay for the first block, the first hour, and then that second hour they can get involved in activities and play games. And really what I like to just think about is being a kid, being social, and then transportation's provided on the ride home on those days. So, we really care about the whole child, not just about them performing well in the classrooms, but we want them to be better human beings when they come to Glasgow, and instilling that time to just be not only successful academically, but also just be the best person that you can be. And that is, I think, what makes Glasgow so unique. And it's why I'm proud to be the principal at Glasgow. So with that, I would love to open it up to questions and answers if we can. I really want to hear more about from you guys.
Thank you, Mr. Derose. تفضل أخونا.
Assalamu alaikum. First of all, I just want to acknowledge that we will try to have some of the conversation translated. We can do it in Arabic, but if somebody who might know maybe another language that somebody does not understand, it is very important today that we're all on the same page. Because the reason why we're here, we all need to understand that what Mr. Shawn Derose is saying, this is something today, it's beyond imperative that the parent, before their children, understand that the role they have to play. So we will try to translate, I personally will try to translate some of your question from Arabic to English. If some of you feel like you need that, I can do it now. We will work with the technology specialist to see if we can translate the whole event in Arabic. But in summary, I will go ahead, just give a couple of minutes in Arabic translation. أستاذ شان ديروس هو مدير مدرسة غلاسكو المتوسطة، وتحدث عموما عن المجهود اللي بتبذله غلاسكو بخصوص الطلاب، أهمها في بعض البرامج التعليمية برنامج اسمه آفيد. هذا البرنامج يتخصص بخصوص مساعدة الطلاب هم يعني بخصوصا الجايين من خلفية ضعيفة. هذا البرنامج يبدأ على كيف استعدادهم للدراسة، كيف يراجعوا، كيف ينظموا الدفتر، كيف يعني يسألوا سؤال، وبعض الأسئلة عندهم بعض الأشياء موجودة بعد المدرسة، المتابعة مع الأستاذ منها في يوم الاثنين والأربعاء والخميس. هذا البرنامج يكون موجود كل أسبوع. فأول ساعة خصوصا بيكون الموضوع له علاقة بمراجعة مع الأستاذ وبعدها مع الأنشطة. الشيء الثانية إنه في المدرسة عندها 3 أسس. هذه الأسس تبني على الكايندنس وهي المودة والرحمة، وعلى الكوميتمنت وهي المجهود، وعلى السيفتي وهو الأمان. وهذه الأشياء لازم تفهم بطريقة واضحة. السيفتي أهم حاجة، لأنه التلميذ عندما يأتي إلى الفصل في بعض القوانين لازم يفهمها من المنزل، كيف يجلس في الكرسي، كيف يسمع كلام الأستاذ، كيف يعني يتعامل مع أصحابه. الشيء الثاني وهو الكايندنس، هي الاحترام للطالب. الكايندنس بخصوص كيف يحاول يعمل أشياء لوحده، مثلا إذا شاف حاجة غلط يعملها بدون ما يتكلموا معاه، لقى ورقة مرمية، قلم مكسور، لقى في واحد محتاج مساعدة من أصحابه في مسألة رياضيات أو علوم أو أشياء لا علاقة بالأشياء الأكاديمية، يساعد. والشيء الثالث وهو أهم شيء المجهود، الكوميتمنت. هذه بتخصصه عن مجهود الطالب والبيت. يعني الطالب لازم يكون عنده المقدرة على أنه يتعامل بمجهود في المدرسة، لأنه هذه المجهود هي السبب الأساسي في تفوق الطالب ونجاحه في المستقبل. فهذه 3 أشياء، الكايندنس وهي ممكن نقول الرحمة، والكوميتمنت وهي المجهود، والسيفتي وهي الأمان. هذه أشياء أساسية لازم تتفهم في البيت. Now, we're going to go ahead, and before we even begin, I have to also acknowledge that the event today was an effort by many individuals within the Glasgow community and the Al-Hijrah community. I have to say a lot of work was done by Ms. Nafisa. She's our liaison at Glasgow, and also some of the faculty that approached me about the importance to have a meeting with the Al-Hijrah community. And also I have to thank Dr. Ahmed for having the support that he gave to the event today. And after all, I'm very grateful that having Mr. Shawn Derose to come out today and, to come and join us on a spring break. Imagine that, spring break, where people are supposed to be relaxing, is that people are taking time off. So in order to help the Al-Hijrah community and overall the Glasgow students. So before I begin the Q&A, everybody can you give a great applause for the brothers here and the guests here. Thank you so much. Obviously, we have time for question and answer, but I have to say, I also want to be honest that we're here today for our children. Something about me, I was from this area. I went to Jeb Stewart. I went to college, and when I get the job at Glasgow as a teacher, I end up realizing I'm actually more connected with you guys. So I am teaching some of your children who are, their father actually my friend, believe it or not. So I am not, speaking to some people who are strangers. So what I want to say is I want you to be open, feel there is no sensitivity here, and be honest and feel like, you know, we need to ask this question to Mr. Shawn or to Ahmed, or even to some of the people that represent Glasgow. So I don't want to feel like there is a barrier. The reason why we're having this event today is to close this barrier and to discuss the thing that maybe as a parent, you know, whether it's a father or a mother, to discuss with us. Because if you don't speak, if you don't come and show us your concern, it will be much harder to actually get our children where they need to get. So inshallah, we have one microphone. Let's have one from the gentleman and one from ladies over here. So again, if you have a question that you feel you want me to translate, feel free. So can I see a raise of hand if you have a question about, you know, what's the need at home or about Glasgow? Okay, so we have one gentleman here, then inshallah we will come over there.
Okay, my name Ibrahim. I have two kids in Glasgow. I have one, my daughter in Glasgow, finished going Jeb Stewart. She with him at Jeb Stewart, and my kid with him in Glasgow. What I'm talking about the time when my kids, they have a class, and they're going to another class. You know, the class is far away. They have 5 minutes. Once you go into the other class, they make him late, because sometimes it's not enough for them to go back. Every time they catch my kids, you know, he late on a class, he late in class. And I ask my son, why are you late on a class? When finished, he say, when I go from this class to the other class was to go to the locker. When we go to class, we already late. But they put him late, and they call me in the phone.
I think that's a very good question. I'm sure I have some of my students here looking at me and saying, you know, Mr. Al-Tahir, the 5 minutes between classes is not enough. Mr. Shawn, can you explain to them how we work at Glasgow when it comes to the transition between classes to classes and lunch to class?
Yeah, and thank you for your question. You know, when I first came to Glasgow, at the high school there's about 8 minutes between classes. At Glasgow there's 5. So I first had that same concern. I was like, boy, I don't know if we're going to get all of these 1,705 kids from one class to the other. But what I've come to realize is, for the most part, a majority of our 6th graders are all in the same area. The majority of our 7th graders and 8th graders combined are all in an area. And what we find is that most of our students are able to get to class on time. In fact, I think up until spring break, this quarter alone, we had of our, like I said, 1,700 kids, we had about 600, a little more than 600 of our students have perfect attendance. So what happens is, and you're right, we do have some students that have difficulty getting to class on time. And what I have found and what I've observed, and I'm sure the students can speak firsthand on this, but if you're leaving one class and going to your locker and getting stuff for your next class and then closing your locker and then walking to your next class, you have plenty of time. We have a warning bell that goes off 2 minutes before the late bell rings. Where we have some difficulty with, some students have difficulty is when you stop, you talk to your friends, you decide that you want to go to another area to get something from your friends and talk about something else. So what we found is the majority of our students have no problems with that 5 minutes, as long as they're transitioning from one class to their locker and then to their other class. If they're stopping and socializing or playing around, or sometimes our students take the long way to class just to go, you know, sometimes it might be with a girl student that they want to see and say hello to. You know how these are 11, 12, and 13, 14-year-old students, so sometimes they don't always, as maybe it's different at home, but sometimes they don't always do what they're exactly supposed to. But the majority of our students, in fact, about 75% of our students, have either perfect attendance or very good attendance. So if you're getting concerns from the school about your students' tardies, it's more of having a question of asking your student, saying, hey, what are you doing when you go from one class to the other? And if you still have questions, there's a couple options. You can always come up to school, and we can show you what your student's doing, which is one of my favorites. Kids always like it when mom and dad come and watch them in between class. Or just let us know, and we have administrators, security, and teachers that are available to help and say, what have you seen this student do instead of going from one class, and we can give you information back on that. So we have a pretty good pulse of some of the students who have difficulty getting to class. We have a pretty good idea of what they're doing instead of going to class or before they're going to class. So just call the student and ask and speak with their administrator or counselor, and we can fill you in.
Assalamu alaikum. I'm going to speak in Arabic, sorry, and he's going to translation for you. First, we appreciate you are here, and أنا بقول إن جلاسكو محظوظة بيه. هو ما شاء الله a good president. My son هو كان في جلاسكو، بعدين مشي لهاي سكول، وكان ما شاء الله هو موجود، وكان ابني عنده سلوك صعب شوية، وكان بيعمل مشاكل، وكان في جلاسكو كل أسبوع عنده detention ويقعد after school، لغاية لما ما شاء الله راح لجيب ستيوارت، وهو ما شاء الله بدأ يتعامل معاه كمان، وبدأ بدل ما يعاقبه يكافئه، يقول له لو انت الاسبوع دوت ما خدتش اي ترابل وما وقعتش في اي مشاكل انا هكافئك وهعزمك على شبوتلي. فاصبح معاه فريندلي، وبدأ ابني سلوكه يبقى احسن، واللي كنت كله بعانيه في جلاسكو اتغير تماما في جيب ستيوارت، لغايه لما هو للاسف مشي من جيب ستيوارت وراح على جلاسكو، ورجع ابني تاني نحاول نقومه من اول وجديد، واحنا فعلا مفتقدينه ونتمنى انه يرجع تاني لجيب ستيوارت. واحنا يعني انا عن نفسي كتجربه شخصيه بقول له فعلا الف شكر ليه ومتشكرين ليه جدا، ونتمنى انه يرجع تاني لجيب ستيوارت. ثانك يو.
انا هحاول اترجم شويه. انت قصدك انك ابنك تحسن سلوكه بعد ما راح لجيب ستيوارت، صح؟ وسؤالي هو متى ذهب الى جيب ستيوارت؟ اي سنه كان في جلاسكو وراح لجيب ستيوارت؟
2 years ago.
ايوه 2 years ago.
Great.
Maybe he knows his name. His name is Mustafa. He's famous.
لا انا عارفه مصطفى غض مين بنساه يعني على عيننا وراسنا. اسمه مصطفى.
Yeah, I got the kid. I got it. Well, first of all, thank you for your question. I'm new to Glasgow. This is my first year. It'll actually be my first year in a couple weeks. It'll mark the 1-year anniversary of me coming over to Glasgow. But I agree, there are some things that we are doing at Glasgow that I think make it very special. It may have been not embedded there a couple of years ago when your student was there. But really and I kind of mentioned it in my open, really celebrating the success of our students. One of the things that we have that is embedded in our everyday life at Glasgow is a couple things. First is we talked about our Panther principles of kindness, commitment, and safety. But when kids demonstrate those principles, those Panther principles of kindness, commitment, and safety, they get a card. They get a card with that, and they can collect as many cards, and then they can keep those cards and then trade them in for prizes at our Panther store every so often in the cafeteria during lunch. So really trying to recognize and celebrate when our students are doing well is something that we're really trying to do, I think at a level that is beyond most schools. I think with that said in mind, we also have new when you walk into Glasgow this year is our Students of the Month. And we have so many different nominees, and we only select, I think, 6 or 9 students, but really trying to be positive about our interactions. This is something that is unique to me. This has been a big learning curve for me, coming from high school, right, where you're dealing with 18, 17, 16-year-olds, to middle school is really our teachers are trained on really how we speak to our students, right? These are young, impressionable students who have a lot of growth, not just physically, but mentally. And so it's important that the relationship that our teachers have and administrators and security, so how we interact with our students and how we correct their behavior is something that we spend a lot of time talking about at Glasgow. And I have to tell you, before I came here, I've never been a part of it. I've never seen a staff that is so dedicated and with a sense of purpose of how to even interact with 11, 12, and 13-year-olds. At the high school level, they're more mature, most of them, so you can be a little more direct. At Glasgow, we recognize that this is a difficult age. I mean, if as an adult, if we all reflect back on us being in middle school, if you can remember back then, I have a hard time remembering back then, but I've seen the pictures, and boy, was I an awkward kid. This is an awkward age and an awkward time, so really developing good relationships with our students, really trying to ensure that we address and talk to them in a proper way. Sometimes we have good days, sometimes, at least me, I have good days and I have bad days, but really being purposeful on recognizing these kids as a young adult and teaching them how to do what we expect them to do.
Hello. Assalamu alaikum. Hi, Mr. Derose. Assalamu alaikum, Mr. Tahir. So I want to add something to Mr. I don't know his name, about the 4 or 5 minutes traveling between classes. Well, if you remember, Mr. Derose, last year we had 4 minutes traveling between classes, right? But this year it's 5 minutes. And I think that we did it last year for 4 minutes, and it was enough. So this year it's 5 minutes, which is an additional 1 minute. I think that all the students, they can make it for 5 minutes. And how? Because if we all remember Mr. Tahir and Mr. Derose, that we had at the beginning like kind of experiment and calculation of the timing. So we had the 2 administrators, then they had to travel from class to class. And they actually went from the farthest location to the farthest location. And they stopped in the bathroom, they stopped in their lockers, and they made it on time. So, as a teacher, I am telling you that 5 minutes, it's more than enough. One, we want the students to be focused on going to their right direction, which is a classroom. This is where we are waiting for them to come, and we are ready for them and ready to teach them. Second, they have to avoid socializing between classes, because once it's longer than 5 minutes, the student, they're gonna end up by socializing, and whoop, the focus is gone. We want them to be focused and make it straight and directly to classes. All right, this is my additional answer. And if you want to say that it's a concern, my concern is not to be late between classes, but my concern to all the parents here is most of the students, they come late in the morning. And I would like to know, how can we solve this problem? Because we know that if we start the morning late, then the whole day is not going to be right. So if someone can give me any suggestion, any solution, how to address this concern, being late in the morning. Many of my students, when I ask them, they're saying that their parents, they're bringing them late to school. And most of them, they're not the one, they are taking the buses, that they are riding with their parents, and they're coming late. So how can we solve this problem or address this issue? Thank you so much.
Thank you. I think that that problem we can solve it by let the kids go to bed earlier. and not to watch TVs. No TVs. Since they have class next morning, they need enough time to sleep, enough time to rest, wake up earlier, have a breakfast, and ready to go to school. Let me tell you, what's the purpose you're putting your child to school? Is to succeed in education. Late means what? He's missing some classes. So if you want the purpose of your child to succeed in education in this country, he has to get education and to go a class earlier. If you are interested that your child succeed educationally in this country, academically, you have to bring him earlier. Even same thing we have it. Tomorrow, if this child, for example, finishes his high school and college, and he get a job you have to come on time, 8 o'clock or 9 o'clock. As soon as he comes late, what happens? They're going to fire him. They say, this guy is not interested, you see. And this is a problem this is a kind of discipline. You have to discipline yourself so they know what they expect you to do in this society. Barakallah fikum. Next question.
I heard that I have 2 children in the middle school age. I live around Glasgow. So my question, I heard that the level of Glasgow Middle School in Fairfax standard is red. I don't know what does it mean. If it shows the level of low level, why it happened, and is there any plan to upgrade this level? And thanks.
You said it was red? Yeah, no, I mean, I can't speak to that. What I can tell you is there are certain, like at any school, Glasgow, Stewart, there are certain levels that you have to attain in order to be rated, how you're rated. We have met all of those goals. For example, there are tests at the end of the year that students take. And they take it in elementary school, middle, and then high school. They're called the Standards of Learning tests, or the SOL tests. And how our students do on these tests determine how the Virginia Department of Education, how they rate our schools, right? And they look at these scores. We do quite well on our student population. We have met the threshold last year. Our goal is obviously to continue to improve and have our students score well on these tests. So we have met all the standards. We're a fully accredited school, which is, I can tell you that just when you compare our school to other schools in Fairfax County and in the state that have anywhere close to the same amount of type of population that we have, I think that we are among the top schools. Most of our schools, there are middle schools that perform better than us on these tests, but if you recognize some of these schools, they don't have near the diversity that we have. When you take into account, as I told you at the beginning, the number of our students, 27% of our students are still learning the English language. You know, our diversity, our background, our challenge, 65% of our students live in poverty. When you take in all of those factors and then look at some of our student achievements at a school, we perform quite well. So we're not a school in red. We're not a school, what is labeled and has been in the past is you are accredited with warning, is how they'll say it nowadays. We're fully accredited. We're not even in that tier. There's either non-accredited, accredited with warning, or fully accredited. We are in the top tier of being a fully accredited school. So like anything else, there's those standards that our students take on tests. They change from year to year. And I know a number of years ago at Glasgow, we had some struggles in math in particular, but we have significally improved over the years.
Okay, let's give the sister side. We move on.
Before I give the microphone to the woman's side, I need to add one point to what Shawn Derose talking about. One thing that I have to say, the teacher at Glasgow, I'm not saying this because I'm from Glasgow, but are one of the hard-working teachers I have seen for many reasons. A lot of times teachers struggle with something as simple as having no email with a parent. having a phone number that doesn't work. And as he said, we are actually, compared to our population, this is a big school. I mean, I live next to Rocky Run Middle School in Chantilly. That school has half of what we have. So when you have a less population, you always can spread your resources. So at Glasgow, when you have 1,700 students, you're talking about way many kids. And speaking of the 5 minutes between classes, some of the students were saying, this year we're having more kids. So in the hallway, we have to push more. It takes more to move through. That's some of the ripple effect when you have 400 more students. As a teacher, we see it. It's sometimes way a lot to deal with. But the goal today is how can we work with our unique needs at Glasgow? And I think Mr. Shawn Derose is speaking about it. So I am not saying that this is an easy thing to do, but I want to let you know why Glasgow has a lesser rating compared to a school that has 1,400 students. I mean, a couple of hundred students, it makes a bigger difference for our management. Now, I'm going to go to the women's side. And again, we will try to kind of cover as much as possible, but make your question brief if you don't mind. Any question on this side, please? Okay.
So, welcome. Thank you. This is like this. I'm a neighbor of some parents, some family who just came from Iraq recently. And even yesterday, I heard of some incidents of security that's happening in the complex where we live between the kids. And I'm not sure if they go to Glasgow, but probably in some schools in this area. So I'm glad that you're taking on the issue of security seriously. And so how do you address issues that happens outside the class that actually disturb the performance of students in school?
Yeah, that's a terrific question. So what happens is they're not completely separate. If students get in trouble in the community, that does not mean that they will not get in trouble at school. Now, that doesn't mean they'll always get in trouble at school if they get in trouble in the community either. So there's a link. How we bridge the two is if something happens that's very serious in the community, we have a police officer that is assigned to our school. He would be notified if the police are notified, and then he would relay that message onto us. And if it's, let's just say it's very serious, right? It compromised the safety of our school because of what this student did in the community, then there would be school discipline that would take place. Let me give you another common example, okay? Let's just say, for example, two students on a Saturday, they go out, they're playing at the playground, and they get into a fight with each other, right? If they get in a fight with each other at the playground, does that mean they're going to get punished at school? Not necessarily. However, because they got in a fight at the playground, because that problem still exists, and they start arguing at school, or it somehow it disrupts the school setting later on, they start yelling at each other in the hallway, or their friends are talking about it at school, about who got in a fight where. If it starts disturbing their learning, then the school will take action. So there are times where if something very serious happens in the community, obviously as a school we want to keep the school building safe, and it will require some discipline from a school standpoint. There are other times where there will be something that happens in the community, but it doesn't have a direct effect on the learning at school, so sometimes they are just two separate things. But I will tell you that this is something that I think we pride ourselves on at this school. We're not without a lot of challenges. We've talked a lot about the size of our kids, our school, the transition time. This is a weird age, as I kind of told you earlier, just reflecting back on my middle school experience. So we do have some issues in all of our backgrounds, all of our cultures mixed into the schools. From time to time, we will have conflict. We will have some discipline issues at the school. But hopefully, and I think our teachers do a great job at monitoring and building relationships with the school. They have a presence in the hallway, administrators, our security team. That's not to say that things don't happen. They do, but hopefully they're resolved. At least I have found that we catch it very quick. There's not much that surprises us. And when situations like that do occur, discipline and steps are taken to ensure it doesn't continue after that. So hopefully that answers your question.
Master Derose, now we have some of your children here, students here. Now let's give the floor to the students who go to Glasgow Middle School. Any student who go to Glasgow wanted to say something to your principal? Who wanted to talk?
We will not give you lunch attention for sure, don't worry.
Okay, in the back, yes. Okay, in the back. What do you want to say to your principal?
We have Muhammad. Okay. Allah Muhammad. Go ahead.
Hi, Muhammad.
Hi. Okay, my question is, how come, like, when I want to go pray at the school, I'm getting told that it affects your learning when it takes about as much time as going to the bathroom? And they're telling us it affects our learning when I see kids going to the bathroom and, like, staying there for, like, more than 10 minutes.
Yes, so Muhammad, tell me what your question is.
Why does it affect our learning if we want to pray when there are kids like going to the bathroom and staying there more than 10 minutes and just walking around the school?
Oh, okay.
They have they call middle prayer.
Right.
I think that between 12:30 to 1:30, and they want you to pray that time. Is there any?
Can I ask something? He's my student too, so he does ask me for the noon prayer.
Yes.
So the winter time and the summer time when it changed, the noon prayer tend to be over around, let's say right now in the summer, we have a bigger gap. It starts at 1:30. It starts about 1:20 or 1:15, it goes all the way to 4:40. But in the winter time, which most of our school year in the winter, it starts around 11:55. So 11:55, they have around until 2:10. So some of the students, especially if they have the fifth block or the 7th period, they might feel like if I don't catch it within that time, I will miss it. And once you miss the timing, then there's no point of redoing it. So one of the things that happened, we have in Glasgow, let's say one pass, and this is something maybe Muhammad over here, he does ask me in the class, and they, as you know, we have a policy that you cannot go to the bathroom every class because the class has 20 or 30 students. If that happened, that would be a problem in the hallway. So there are some situations like this with students such as Muhammad, and I think also Elias here that they need to go to the library for a 5-10 minutes. Can you maybe elaborate on that, Mr. Derose? How does school feel about that?
Let me ask the principal. There is a time for these kids to go to the library and do their prayers. Is there any? And they are concerning that they wanted to pray. So, and he says that what is the logic? If a student can go to the bathroom, why is not allowed to go to also the library and pray do prayer?
Yeah, so Muhammad, I think you have a great question, okay? And I will tell you that we do make accommodations for Friday prayer at Glasgow, which I think is very important, obviously, to our school and many of our students in our school culture. I think where the challenge, Muhammad, comes in is we've talked about our size. From a school's perspective, we're only assigned think about this for a second, 1,705 people. We keep saying that, right? We only have officially one security person in our school. Now, we have taken resources and trying to be proactive about this, and we now have 2. Last year we had 1, this year we have 2 security. So between our teachers and between our small security staff and our administrators, it comes down to a safety issue and more of a supervision issue. Is if we have, let's just say about 15% of our students probably are Muslim and they want to do a daily prayer, being 15% of 1,700 is a couple hundred kids. And so the idea that a couple hundred kids would leave class, go to a location just to pray on a daily basis and be properly, and remember these are 11, 12, 13-year-olds that they're just going to go down and pray. They're not all like Muhammad back there. They'll actually go, and some they'll have a difficulty getting to class. So Muhammad, it really comes down to a supervision issue and a space issue of finding those at that time. You know, if we had more resources as a school, and this is something that we can talk about, but I think what we try and do is make accommodations for Friday prayer, but because of our limited staffing allocations and all the reasons that I said, that's why we don't do it on a daily basis. And the times change, I think, a little bit from...
Again, Mr. Derose, you said you have 1705 students. And all these kids, they go to bathroom in one way or another in each class. What is wrong to accommodate, again? A small number of kids, maybe we said, 15% and maybe about 400, but they don't go at the same time. They can go, a group can go, in 11:30, or a group can go 12:30. Can you find a way to accommodate them?
You know, it's difficult. I think that not only are we talking about having 1 or 2 security for 1,700, but in that same time frame is, you know, students, a number of hundreds of students leaving for lunch. The other difficult spot of this is when you're talking about 400 kids, even if it was broken up over different times.
Can you use the lunchtime? Can they use their lunchtime that time?
Sure. So what we've done for Friday prayer, for students in Friday prayer, is we've reserved a location for them. But on a daily basis, for daily prayer, what's difficult is, because we are a school that was built for 1,500 kids,
yes.
You know, we have 205 kids over capacity, so finding not only the supervision and the logistics is very difficult, but also finding the space is difficult
We
as
have
well.
an issue here because after 2 months we have what we call Ramadan. It's a fasting day. Our kids are not going to eat.
Yeah.
Why they can't use that period, lunchtime, to pray?
Yeah, it just comes back down to a supervision and space issue. Like I said, there's absolutely, for those of you who have ever been to Glasgow, especially during the school day, not only is our hallways crowded, as we've kind of talked about, but we have turned closets into office spaces. We have turned storage areas into classrooms. So for us, it comes down to not just supervision, but also finding that space for them.
Can you use, for example, how many Muslim teachers you have in that school? Or Arabic teachers? Can you use these teachers or Muslim teachers in your school to supervise?
I don't know the number. I mean, obviously, it's not a question that we ask. But you know, all of our teachers in our building, they have different. They have responsibilities of teaching. So let's just say that we were to try and accommodate their schedule. There's so many constraints that we have on building a master schedule that would accommodate the needs of our students.
Okay.
Would be tough.
Thank you.
Tough. Yeah.
Let's look at also the girls.
I will give the microphone to the lady over there, but just to speak what Shawn Derose is speaking about, he's speaking like Muhammad, for example, he will go on the library, if not mistaken. Yes, Muhammad? So sometimes the library is reserved for SOL testing. Sometimes the SOL is reserved for some training. The issue is logistic. How can we have a space that's always designated to be empty? So one of the ways that I would suggest to the parent, just to make it fair for the student, is that the student always going to have about 2 periods, either their 5th period or 7th, or 6th or 7th. They can speak to the teacher, the parent themselves, speak to the teacher. Let them know, my son or my daughter, they have a religious obligation on this time. Could you make it possible to give them another way, like a bathroom break, to go and use it only for this purpose? On the side of the teacher, for example, I'm the Arabic teacher at Glasgow, and most of my students are Muslim. Now, on the argument Mr. Derose is saying, sometimes kids say, I'm going to pray, but they end up going to play. And this is the problem. So now we instead of looking for your right, we're looking for a safety issue. And we only have 2 security. And somebody like Muhammad, for example, I cannot trust him because I know he does it. I know he does it regularly. But there are some kids who abuse that right. Now, I, as a teacher, have to look at these students and say, you know, Dr. Ahmed, they not only left my class, and not only they missed some educational time, they actually went to the hallway, caused disruption, and caused a safety problem for our school. Now, this is something that I have to be honest with the parent that the school, we're here to help you. I'm sure when when something like this arises, most teachers will say no problem. But if your son and your daughter have to work with the teacher, another way is instead of go every 7 period, they should do it every other day. On the days an even week, they go 6 period, and the next day they go 5th period, or the next day they go 7 period. Because end of the day, we don't want them. The prayers will take 5 or 10 minutes, but these 5 or 10 minutes they'll be taking a test. They'll be learning a new lesson. They'll be doing a review. By that it's the teacher not trying to tell you, don't do it, but can you be smart about how you're doing it? Because sometimes, I think Mr. Shawn Derose, we can have them go to the lecture hall. We can have them see the empty area in the library where it's not reserved that day. Because I think I spoke to Mr. couple of administrative in the school, and the issue is just we have too many kids. And when 5 kids out of the class at the same time, it's going to become an issue of security. So I do think there are solutions. We're already available, but I really want to let the parent know that you need to work with the teacher. Teacher would say yes, but you have to let them know, because we don't want to have the kids say, I'm a Muslim, I gotta go. Well, we still have to make sure we have a system, we have a security need, and end of the day, if something happened to them, we are the problem. And again, they're middle schooler. I mean, we all understand middle school, they're still learning to be, young adult. Okay. Now, before I go to Madame Blanche, I have to have this lady here. She has a question to ask.
أهلا وسهلا مستر ديروز. عندي سؤالين مهمين. هل يوجد مخدرات في المدرسة؟ وإذا كان يوجد مخدرات، ما هي الطرق اللازمة سواء من الأهل أو من المدرسة لتفادي هذه الأمور؟ السؤال الثاني، هل يوجد أسلحة لايك المسدسات أو السكاكين أو كذا؟ ما هي الخطوات المتبعة من المدرسة لحماية الأطفال هناك؟ لأنه لاحظت أنه في ال3 سنوات الماضية مشاكل في نسبة استخدام المسدسات أو السكاكين في المدرسة. شكرا.
So the question was about the fire alarm?
It's about discipline. Is a student breaks a law, what will be the consequence, and what have to do the parents?
We have what they call progressive discipline, right? Progressive discipline is think of it from a parenting standpoint, is a student does something that they're not supposed to do, there's going to be a consequence. But it doesn't mean, as we know as parents, fair and equal are two different things, right? So if a student is getting in trouble for the first time, it may be as simple as a warning. It may be as simple as a lunch detention. But if we're starting to see a pattern of misbehavior or students making the same mistake twice, there's two different angles. The first is, are we teaching, does the student know what to do? And are we ensuring that we're teaching the kid what to do? For example, I'll use the tardy to class is a great example. We keep coming back to that. For many of our students, let me say it this way. For a very few of our students who have a hard time getting to class, we have staff members throughout the year that will be assigned to a student just to make sure that teach them how to get to class on time. So I think depending on the circumstances, we want to do two things. There's consequences such as a warning or a lunch detention or an after-school detention. Some severe cases may require what's called an in-school suspension, where a kid will be taught in a very small room for a day and reflect on what they did wrong. And in very severe cases, and very rare, but a student could be suspended out of school. But at the same approach, we also take into consideration, are we teaching this kid what to do? Not just assuming that they know the difference between right and wrong.
And just to add, she was talking about more specifically drugs. Drugs and weapon.
Yeah.
And what is the percentage you notice in the school?
Yep.
And what did you see? And we're talking about severe consequence here and how the law enforcement and the school work in that relation.
Yeah, so let's talk a little bit about drugs, and I'll give you a perspective from a high school and a middle school standpoint. It's very rare that drugs have been, that I believe that drugs show up at school. It's very, very rare. Does that mean it doesn't happen? No. It does happen from time to time. This year we've had one instance where a student was caught with marijuana. In those cases where a student will bring drugs to school or come under the influence of, actually they're two separate things. So for example, if your student brings drugs, marijuana, to school, the consequences are swift and severe. That student would be what's called now referred to the division superintendent. And what that means is there's probably a good chance that that kid will no longer go to Glasgow. It's a little...
Did you notify the Fairfax County Police?
Yes. So
so it'd be a felony on that.
It could, depending on the amount.
But he's
right?
a minor. How you can do that?
Yeah, so what minor is, there's usually diversion programs that they go to, like trainings or seminars that the kids have to learn about just the effects that drugs can have. And that's called a seminar, an alcohol and other drug seminar. So if you're caught bringing drugs to school, it's very serious. And students are referred to the division superintendent, and in most cases, just depending on the circumstances, that student no longer goes to school at Glasgow. At the very least, for the minimum of that year, and most likelihood for the remainder of their schooling. They're either assigned to an alternative school or goes to another middle school, but usually an alternative school. And then firearms.
I mean, they're both related to firearm or,
like weapons, firearms.
Yes, firearms.
Yeah, so...
And percentage that, have you noticed increase or decrease?
It hasn't happened, at least not while I've been there. I've also known that I think a couple of years ago a kid brought a BB gun to school a number of years ago. But it's the same kind of thing. It's very, very serious. If a kid is caught bringing drugs or has a weapon, what's more common, I think, in schools is more of like a knife. Whether it be for like a Swiss Army knife or stuff like that. But if kids are caught with that, especially if the blade is large, there's severe consequences.
Okay. And let's have the men side. Mr. Al-Hijrah.
Good afternoon, Mr.
Great to see
Derose,
you.
and welcome to our community.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
You're welcome. My question is, again, related to drugs. I understand that you have very tough policy when it comes to drugs. Is there a way that the school could detect students that are under the influence of drugs? And what do you do in this case?
Thank you for your question. I can't speak to, no, I can. I can speak to both my experience at Stewart and at Glasgow, but there are times, it's very rare at the middle school, where a kid will come to school under the influence of drugs, but it could happen. I've seen it at Stewart more, I haven't seen it yet at Glasgow, but let's just assume for a second. For a student who is under the influence of drugs, there are signs that they will have, and whether that be their physical appearance, whether their eyes are bloodshot or they're disoriented. So let me give you a real picture of what it would look like in a school. All right. So for example, we have a number of teachers here, and this has happened a couple times. We really pride ourselves as a school as large as we are, of our teachers and administrators of really developing a positive relationship with all of our kids. So our teachers are phenomenal, and they know their students. So if they see a student walk into class and you're like, he or she just, something's not right, I think something's wrong with this kid. And this happens. What they'll do is they'll either call an administrator, they'll call the main office, they'll call an administrator. Sometimes I've had a case where a teacher has pulled me aside in the hallway and said, something's not right with this kid today. Something's a little off. So we'll come down, we'll ask to speak with the student, we'll pull him or her out. We'll talk to him, we'll bring him down, and we'll say, how you doing? And I'm trying to guess whether this kid is something wrong with this kid. So, anytime any faculty member has a suspicion that the kid is not acting like he or she normally does, they could call security, they could call the main office. We would come down and speak with the student. We would be asking them questions. We would search them. We would search their locker. And then based upon if we found out that the kid was under the influence of something, obviously we call the parents. We bring them up. We try and get as much information and see if this is something that, are there other students that are involved? Because sometimes when these situations happen, it's usually not an isolated case. It's usually more than one kid that will do these kinds of, make mistakes and make these kinds of decisions. So is it bigger than just one student? And then, depending on the student and their level of discipline history, there's consequences to it. If you have drugs on you, it's very severe. If you're under the influence, it's still very severe, but it's just not as severe. But in addition to the consequences and the likelihood of suspension and possible referral to the division superintendent, you're talking about the students attending a seminar to make sure they understand the negative effects of drugs. So it's pretty thorough if those situations happen.
And again, we're speaking about middle school, and usually this is very maybe common with high school students. But sometimes we have rare occasion where it does trickle to a middle school, but this is my 4th year at Glasgow. It's not that common to see it. Very rare. And once this happens, we do come at it very hard. This is very severe. It's not, and again, but I also work at Falls Church High School, and they are more prepared for these things, because by then we're talking about more complex brain thinking. Somebody who's 16 and 17 are working on that. Now,
let me also point out one thing that I like about Glasgow. All right. I mentioned it earlier that there's not much that surprises us, and I mean that because not a lot of things surprise me, but we have not only terrific teachers, but some of our administrators, our assistant principals and deans of students, they taught in the building. They know the community well. They know the students well. So not much surprises us. I also have to give for the students in here. I think that there's reputations, especially in our cultures nowadays, that boy, if you see a kid doing something wrong, I don't want to tell on him. I don't want to snitch, as the kids would say, right? That I could get in trouble. I think this goes back to our Panther principles, and I think our kids have a different mindset nowadays, which we're slowly changing. Is, listen, if that kid is doing something wrong, I'm going to be a good friend and I'm going to help them. Either stop them from doing it, or if a kid is under the influence of drugs or brings drugs to school, in all likelihood that student has, at least in our experience in my first year, has either told the kid, hey, you shouldn't be doing that, and at the same time telling an adult and saying, hey, listen, Mr. Derose, I just want to let you know that Marcus has something he shouldn't have. I don't want to see him get in too much trouble. Can you help him out? And so a lot of the times kids are approaching us. I think it goes back to the relationships. And when we see that kind of interaction amongst student to student and student to adult, I think it shows that you have a really good school culture, a really good school environment. And in those cases where we see students helping other students, we really like to recognize those students for doing the right thing in difficult circumstances.
Before we have all these questions coming up, we also have to understand, because we are time constrained, I want to give a couple of minutes to Ms. Nafisa Taha, because she's the liaison at Glasgow, and also she was the liaison at Jeb Stewart, and she worked between us and the school. So one thing that I have to say is we need to listen to what she hear on a regular basis of what she deals with, because one of the problems that before we get to the bigger question, we have a daily need at Glasgow. I'm talking about something as simple as a 5-minute tardy or not finishing their work. So I think Ms. Nafisa, she can maybe give more information on what she noticed and what she want the parent themselves to know, because she deals with these things on a daily basis.
First, assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh, and thanks everyone for coming for this meeting, and I really appreciate Mr. Derose for opening this communication and this dialogue. For my experience as 5 years from Jeb Stewart or 3 years here now at Glasgow, really we need to involve in our kids' education, and we need if we can volunteer or we can come to the BTSA meeting or BTA meeting. It is only monthly basis. It's not like every day or every week.
And which time is the meeting? What time is the meeting you have?
The meeting usually is going to be like a third, I think, Wednesday.
Is that a weekend, Saturdays, or?
No, it's going to be like Wednesdays.
What time?
Usually 7 o'clock.
Okay, this is after the work time, yes.
Yeah. So many parents complain about they cannot drive to Glasgow because it's very far. It's different than Bayless Elementary or James Stewart High School. But also encouraging them, like if they cannot come to Glasgow, like today we can bring this meeting here to, the Al-Hijrah or Bayless Elementary Schools. They have more space. And please don't hesitate to call me or call anybody. Like if you have a concern through the teacher or misunderstanding, call me. My phone number in the website, my email there. I encourage everybody to involve in their, kids' education. This one of the points. But the emails, sometimes the problems I kept calling the parents, but there is no answer or the telephone is changed. And it is emergency, really, if something happened like health issues and the kids have to go to the emergency room, there is no way they can touch your child if you are not give them a permission. So please keep them updated with your emails, with phone numbers. If you change your phone numbers or you change your cell phone numbers, please let us know. Jazakum Allah khair. And if you have any question or you're not receiving any newsletter from us or from the principal newsletter, please let us know. So we can involve these emails or the phone numbers on the system. Jazakum Allah khair.
Thank you, Sister Nafisa. But also, all the parents who go to either Glasgow Middle School or James Stewart, if they wanted to meet, they are welcome to use our facility, Al-Hijrah. They can use they can use our facility to meet these parents who have children in the Glasgow school. No, I'm sorry. Okay, but the Glasgow parents, they can use our facility. Yes, anytime they want it, they are open. So this is
Nafisa brings up a point that I think is every Sunday, I write a letter to the Glasgow community and I highlight some of the successes that we have and also some of the challenges that we have. So you can go online and you can, it's called a Keep in Touch, a KIT. You can sign up for that Keep in Touch. And Nafisa, we can give them the information on how to sign up for a Keep in Touch. But every Sunday I send an email out to the staff about what meetings.
How many people attend to the PTA?
We have about, I think our last PTA meeting we had about 50 to 60 people, like our last 50.
Can you use also our facility here? Can you do that here?
I think that we could. I think our PTA meetings are primarily in Glasgow, but I think we can find opportunities to come and branch out to the neighborhoods or have separate meetings as well, in addition to that.
We can encourage our Muslim parents to come. So
yeah, I like that idea.
In this case, so you can have this meeting.
I like that idea.
Okay, thanks.
I also want to talk about, I know there's a question back there. You got a question, I'm going to get to you right in a second, okay? We've talked a lot about tardies and discipline, and I think these are all very important, but I do want to tell you a little bit about, I'm new, I keep saying it, I'm really in my first year, and how special Glasgow is. We're starting to find out right now. I'm starting to tell the teachers this very same thing. So just because we live in a transient area and we're such a large school that we have teachers, and a lot of our teachers, they come and they get promoted and they leave, or they move. Or there's some teachers, very small few, that come to Glasgow and they say, you know what, I would like a different experience and go to a different school. So every year we hire, on average, Glasgow does, of about anywhere from about 25 new teachers. And many schools with our population have found it challenging to hire quality staff and continue to recruit quality staff. Glasgow's doesn't have that problem. The word on the street, and it's the right thing, is Glasgow is very diverse. It's a very challenging place to work, but it's also very rewarding. And hopefully our teachers feel very supported at that school. So right now we know that we're going to have a number of about 20 to 25 teachers that will probably leave for next year. We're at a situation right now where we have almost a waiting list for teachers that we even want to interview. So it really is a special place, and you know it's special, at least from a principal's viewpoint, when you know that how hard is it to attract great teachers to this school. And the county offers what's called early hire contracts. That's when they go to like college campuses and they say, oh my gosh, this is a great teacher, we got to have them. And they hire them, and they get a job contract that they can work. They can work in any school in Fairfax County. They just have to choose and interview which one they want to. Well, of our early hires that are just coming out now, we've already had 3 that want to come to Glasgow. No other school has that same commitment already of early hires. There is a waiting list of teachers that want to work at our school, and I think that's just a tribute to not only how great our teachers do inside the classroom and how they support each other, but also how we work as a staff, how well we work as a staff together, and how well we start to communicate with our community members about expectations in events like this.
Just to add to what Mr. Shawn is talking about and what Ms. Nafisa is talking about, you know, this is a transit area. A lot of people come in and leave, you know, either they're, you know, part of the military or work for the Pentagon, and you have a lot of these teachers, you know, also have family needs. So a lot of time, we don't want to heavily rely on the teacher because they come and go. You know, and we need to talk about more on the parent. Don't forget to do your homework. Because at the end of the day, teacher, they also have other commitment. But the problem is we need to make sure that we don't lay back here and expect the teacher to do all the work. Because what happens is this: once your son and daughter leave 7th grade, they have left a whole year now. They're going to 8th grade. And if something happened between there, as a parent, you have to ask yourself, did I do the best for my son or daughter? Because Mr. Shawn Derose, he's new this year. But that doesn't mean the work changed. You know, we always have committed people coming to our school. So this is the reason here is that, and this is something, Shawn Derose, maybe you need to get an idea, is that when I went to school back home in my native country, the teacher and the school did most of the work. In the US, I noticed different when I came here, because when I was in high school, I noticed that home have to be more involved. For example, you know, the education system in America is different than most of where people, you know, where they came from. In a way, I remember when I was, you know, back home in my native country, if you don't do well, you repeat. If you don't do well, you don't go, you know, next year. There's a lot of rigor process to go from middle school to high school. In the US, it's more different, where you have to set the standard at home. Because I have students who will get a C and they will say it's okay because my dad and mom are happy with it. Now a C, they're not gonna make it. A B it's okay, it's good but not the best. Because we're talking about college, we're not talking about just middle school, we're not talking about high school. Because the challenge is when the question is, do we want our kids to go to college or we want them just to get by? And I'm not trying to say teachers don't have a responsibility. We do have a responsibility. This is heavily on us. But at the end of the day, I think the parent should understand this is your son, this is your daughter. Because when I went to college, it's clearly, it's public school, middle school, and high school, it is the foundation. Because when you go to college, nobody's going to come after your kids. Your kids have to basically have the skills, what they need. And let's be honest, college is very expensive nowadays. So what we're doing at Glasgow and the way we do at Jeb Stewart, it makes their life easier as they go to college. Because the idea that some parents said, why don't you do this? Why don't you do that? Well, the education system is different. I can't force your son and daughter to get an A. I could push them to get an A. But you at home, when your kids come to you every day, you look at their binder, you look at their grade, that's not acceptable for me. You tell your kids that, if you don't get an A, that's not acceptable. You need to go with your teacher. But I notice a lot of the parents, this is again, we're dealing with a different background. I never had to go home and tell my mom, I'm not doing well in math or language back home. If you don't do well, you repeat the whole year. So I never had to tell my parents. My parents knew immediately I was going studying, taking after school by myself. Here in America, it's different. A kid can get a C. As a teacher, I can't force him. I can't force him to stay after school with me. I can call the parent and let them know what's going on. So this is the reason why something as simple as your email, your phone number. I mean, this is really scary because I worked there for 4 years. I am the teacher from 6th to 8th grade. I literally had these kids for years in front of my eyes, and I realized it's really home that set the standard. Home is the one that tells the kids B plus is the minimum. And this is something that I notice a lot of parents are working, they're trying to make a living, they're trying to put food on the table, but I'm gonna be very honest. Your kids need you more with them at home than you can imagine. Because if you come home and you bring them the iPhone, you bring them these nice clothes, and their grade is bad, then think about it, what their future is gonna look like. So this is one of the reasons I'm saying is that we in Glasgow, we have every year about 25, 30 new teachers. And whether he's here or someone else here next year, we as a parent, we need to make sure is our kids cannot wait for a miracle to happen. We have to push them for that. Now I know we have about 25 minutes. I know some of you already asked questions. Mr. Shawn is not leaving. So at the end of the forum, you can come and ask him. But I want to make sure each one of you who did not ask a question can get a chance to maybe ask.
I want to ask the principal, Derose. In your presentation, you talk about the AP level classes. These advanced classes were in math and science. Can you talk to the parents so they can benefit, they understand, so they need, these are good courses, if they take the student, even can go, I think some of the courses can be credited in the high school.
Yeah.
Okay, can you talk?
Yeah, so, you know, we just talked and heard about, you know, the importance of students getting good grades in classes, especially at the middle school, because it tends to have an effect and carry over that type of work ethic carries over not only into high school but also into college. And we want students to be challenged, right? I mean, our teachers do a very good job at challenging our students in the classroom, but there's a difference in education. You know, if you are, especially when you get to high school, whether it's an IB classes or AP classes, depending on what high school you go to, you want to take some of the tougher classes because it's going to challenge your student even more. And when those kids are enrolled in these AP courses or IB courses, depending on the school that you go to, their success in college significantly goes up. In fact, what you have is, for many students, and some of you might be this, for students who are full IB diploma candidates, meaning that they've taken all IB classes their junior and senior year at Stewart, you know, when they come back and they're at UVA, it helps them get into college, number one, but not just getting in, because college has over 50% of students who go off to four-year colleges, over 50% of them drop out. So it's not just about getting to college, it's also about staying in college and being successful in college. And the way to do that is to prepare them starting in middle school and then especially in high school of taking some advanced honors level classes. It'll not only help them, it could have the potential of earning college credit and saving money, but most importantly, it's going to prepare them for college where they're going to find it to be college to be easier than if they never took an advanced level course before.
So when you're at Glasgow, how many grades do you need from each class? Like the minimum?
So at Glasgow, it's not as stringent as it is in high school. Okay, so at Glasgow you take 7 classes, okay, and you'll get a grade in each one of your 7 classes. When you get to high school, when you go off to Stewart, you'll have 7 classes as well. But each of those are credit-bearing, meaning you need to have a certain amount of credits in order to graduate from high school. So you'll get 7 grades at Glasgow, you'll get 7 grades at Stewart, and then as you probably know, there's first quarter, second quarter, third quarter, fourth quarter, maybe final exams depending on your classes, and then your final grade. But what matters most is your final grade at the end of the year in your 7 classes.
Okay, but I mean, like, how many summatives do you need, formatives, and...
Oh, okay, it'll depend. That's a lot more detailed question than I was going for. I like that. It was put on the spot.
Like, for an example, in one class I had 4 grades, like 1 homework, 1 formative, and 2 summatives, and that's it. And is that like okay?
Yeah. So there are different levels. Different classes will have different number of formative and summative assessments that they'll have. But what you should care most about, especially at the beginning of the year when you take the class, like if you're at Stewart and you're taking IB, you're taking IB Arabic or you're taking IB Chemistry, that will be in the syllabus about what to expect in that class and the number of formative and summative assessments, how much homework you'll have each night. So and you'll know about that even before you take the class. You can ask those questions. As, hey, listen, I really want to take IB Chemistry, but how much homework do I have a night? How many formative and summative assessment tests will I have? So all those things you can start asking now and get an understanding before you sign up to take those classes.
Okay.
Good question.
Let me ask you, Principal Derose, how about special education? Do you have special education in Glasgow? Special education.
Yeah. And I didn't say we have special education, and the way I kind of phrased it at the very beginning of my presentation was kids learn in different ways. So there's sometimes where students have a disability that it doesn't mean that they can't learn, they just learn differently. So we have a terrific special education department, we have terrific special education teachers, we have terrific special education instructional assistants that work with our students and the parents of those students to ensure that they're learning at a high level.
Just to add one comment, some of the student, apparently he's not here. He's talking to it's not the question for Mr. Derose or Dr. Ahmed, it's for the parent. He's saying that some Muslim students, sometimes they say Allahu Akbar in the class, and some people don't understand it or don't know what it means, and they're saying to the parent, you should speak to your son or daughter at home, that some people might, with the whole Islamophobia that's out there, if you can speak to your children, that be careful what you say in the class, because some kids, they feel, a little bit intimidated, or may feel you should have the kids, like in my class, I have a lot of Muslim students, so they understand what that means. But imagine if the student in the class where most people don't understand what that means. So this is one of the concern of the student, if I'm not mistaken, that's what he meant.
That's fine.
Okay, Assalamu alaikum everyone. My name is Meha. I'm a staff attorney at the Council on American Islamic Relations in DC. We're the largest American Muslim civil rights organization, so we help litigate cases and protect people who've been discriminated against because of their religion, Islam, or any religion, as long as it's based on religion and they've been unfairly discriminated against. So given the recent events that we're seeing being taken place throughout the world, and the increasing rise of anti-Muslim sentiment and Islamophobic rhetoric, we're also seeing an unfortunate rise in harassment, bullying, and hate crimes against Muslims in the United States. So I just wanted to let you know that we exist and we're here to try to help you in case any incidents like this you have to experience or witness any such incidents. We're here to help you and guide you through any problem you might face, especially with respect to school. There are certain responsibilities and laws that teachers and schools have to abide by. By law, it's unlawful for students to be harassed and bullied to a severe extent based on their religion or ethnicity or race. So if you encounter challenges like this within school, feel free to report it, and then we can also provide ways to help you mediate and find a mutually amicable resolution between the parties, inshallah. With respect to accommodations, such as prayer accommodations, students generally do have the right to accommodations within school. It should be reasonable, and we encourage people to have an open dialogue with their teachers and principals to see what would best fit their scheduling. We recommend that when you request a prayer time, you try to choose it at a time that doesn't interfere with class time or important school activities. So, for example, you can use your lunchtime part of it and pray at that time. If you have difficulty getting permission to leave the lunchroom, that's something you can discuss openly with your teachers and administrators to ensure that you don't get penalized for moving around the school, and you're able to complete your prayers during a time that's reasonable, inshallah.
Yeah, thank you. So thank you very much. And I think what she's basically saying, for a lot of Muslims, they feel like we have to wait for a certain thing. No, as a Muslim, you're supposed to be proud of your deen. You're supposed to understand that the system recognizes you have needs. But a lot of time, some of the people were asking is, you as a Muslim, you have to come and ask for something that you're entitled to. So it's not like these people out there who say what they say about Muslim is going to make anything if we don't actually stand up and speak about whether the prayer time, the slur that they say against Muslim. I'm sure some of you know that some Muslim woman was in DC library. She was asked by an officer to remove her hijab, and that's just a sign that as a Muslim, the woman, she refused because she knew that's her right, on her faith right or constitution right. So as Muslim, the school is here to give you your right. And I have to say, Mr. Shawn Derose also has never heard any incident, whether he was at Jeb Stuart or at Glasgow, where he basically denied someone religious right, whether they're Muslim or Christian or Jewish or somebody who's an atheist. So I'm a Muslim. I go to the Friday prayer. I pray my Dhuhr and Asr and Maghrib and sometimes even Isha in the madrasa. But that's not, I let know some of the faculty that I'm using this space, let them know I have to go to the Jum'ah. So you have to ask about these things. And, we all are mixed people in the school. So end of the day, I want the Muslim to know that what she's saying is that you should not be intimidated, but you should understand you have an involvement. Because your children are going to be the leader of this nation one day. I'm an example. Been here 15 years, now I'm a teacher. So I have two cultures, and yet I have a role to play. So that's why I am saying this to the parents, you really have to make sure that you don't ask for a favor. That's your right. Now I'm going to take one more question from the lady in the back. Then we have about 20 minutes, but as I said, Mr. Shawn Derose will have time with it. The lady over here, she have a very good question. She's asking about there is other option to be accepted to TJ, Thomas Jefferson, beside the normal route, because she's saying, it's kind of a little bit challenging to get to TJ. And for those of you who don't know TJ, it is the top school in the county to have our kids attend it. And it's really, it's the premier school for most schools in the county. They want their children to attend it. And I think Mr. Shawn Derose, you could really help us with more elaboration on that.
Yeah, the answer is there's just one process to get into TJ, just through the application process, the test and the application process. I will tell you though, there's, by working at TJ, there is something that's not advertised, at least as much as I think it could be, is, you're right. I spent 4 years at TJ. It's a terrific school. And I know a lot of students really dedicate themselves and go through that admissions process and don't get in, and it's tougher to get into TJ than some Ivy League schools. It's just an incredible application process. However, TJ accepts what's called soft Froshmores, is what they call it. So after your first year, let's just say your student didn't get into TJ. They applied in 8th grade, they didn't get in, so they go to Jeb Stuart. They go to Jeb Stuart their freshman year, they get all A's their freshman year. They can then reapply as a freshman, going soon to be sophomore, to TJ, and TJ will look at their scores and look at their grades, and then could accept them their sophomore year, which is, it does happen. In fact, one of my students, when I was a teacher, not a teacher, but when I worked at Stewart, he went to Stewart his freshman year and then got accepted as a Froshmore, meaning a sophomore, but in his first year at TJ. And he went off to do some amazing things, and we still keep in touch. So I think that's probably, the answer to your question is no, the application process, there's no, it is what it is. But one thing that's not advertised is this ability after your freshman year of high school, that if you're at Stewart or any other high school in the county, you can transfer to TJ if you have good grades after your freshman year. It's still an application process. It's still not a guarantee, but the opportunity is there and the percentages is greater.
Can I ask you a question?
Yeah.
you are Glasgow, do you try to, I know you are a principal, you want your kids to succeed.
Yes.
Did you try your kids to go to, at least some of kids go to the TJ?
At Glasgow or my kids?
Yeah, I'm talking Glasgow.
Okay, Glasgow.
That's your students.
Okay, I have 3 kids too.
Yes.
So absolutely. Last year, normally, Glasgow will send about 2 to 3 kids to TJ every year. Last year we sent 5. I anticipate that number continuing to increase. I think it's a one-time test, a one-time opportunity. I'm not an expert in the TJ experience as well, but I will speak to TJ. There's a lot of, I went there, I think it's a terrific school. I mean, I had a great experience there. And my daughter, I think my oldest daughter, I mean, we'll see, I have a 7-year-old, a 5-year-old, and a 2-year-old. My 7-year-old, I think, is demonstrating that she may qualify for the honors or advanced academic program. You know, and I will have a tough choice of whether I want my daughter to go to TJ or to Stewart or to, I live in Mount Vernon area, but I would have no problem sending my kid to Glasgow. In fact, I can because I'm the principal, and I think it's a conversation my wife and I are going to have in a couple of years. Hopefully she'll come to Glasgow and then off to Stewart. But she may be a candidate to go through the application process at TJ. But I will tell you that TJ is terrific, but it has to be for the right student. It's very challenging. It's very difficult. There's a lot of pressure that these students put on themselves. And for the student who is, if it's not the right student, if he or she gets into TJ and it's not for the right reasons, it's very, very stressful for the student having worked there.
You're right. I know if you heard about many of the, even kids, brilliant kids, when they go to these Ivy schools, for example, Stanford, we have a student who finished it in the high school because they're brilliant. You know that if they fail in the first year semester, the suicidal is very high, the rate is very high because students is brilliant, and you go these brilliant schools, when they become depressed, and we have a high level of suicide. We don't have to push kids too much.
Just to make sure he's still available for the next 15 minutes. You feel free after we're done to come and ask him. Your still question. I mean.
And Ayman, let me. If once you're done asking this question, I'll just say a brief closing remarks. And then
just basically, we're supposed to meet until 4 o'clock. So I just want to say most of your question was asked, but some of you need more elaboration because he's not sure he fully understood your question. But I just want to say, just because we don't want to take him too long, I will go ahead now, Mr. Shawn Derose, go ahead.
Before he makes conclusion, let me say that Master Derose, it was wonderful meeting with us, and you are very welcome next time. So this was a good town hall meeting, and we wish the best for you and our community.
Thank you.
And now let's give you our final remark.
Thank you. Well, listen, it's a pleasure being here. One of the things that I want to just relay on to you as the principal, speaking to you as parents and the community members is we're only as strong as we can be if we work together. There's a couple things. The first is I will continue to say it, the staff that we have at Glasgow, the teachers that we have at Glasgow, they're very dedicated, they're very talented. And I would encourage you to get to know your students' teachers. You will find that same, I think, come away with that same conclusion. And anytime that you hear something that just doesn't sound right, like your son or daughter will come home and they'll tell you a story about what happened at school or what happened at class, or my teacher said this, or my principal did this, don't ever be afraid to call the school. In some certain situations, especially if it's bad news, the teacher might have a different perspective than the student of what happened. And I think as a parent, myself, I think it's really important to hear what my student's perspective is, my child's perspective, and the perspective of the teacher or administrator or whatever it is. So that communication, don't ever be afraid to email, don't ever be afraid to contact your students' teachers, don't ever be afraid to contact me. Hopefully you'll hear a response in a quick turnaround. And if you don't, then yell at me and email me again, because I must have missed the email. We talked a lot about doing homework and getting to class on time. I think that's really important. What education is saying, what research is saying, what's most important nowadays is making sure your student reads. 20 minutes of reading every day for your student is showing, research is showing that it's having a dramatic effect on a student's academic success, is if they are putting down the iPads, turning off the TVs, and just simply reading for 20 minutes. And it doesn't have to be reading any kind of textbook, but just reading something that they like, reading a book, reading a magazine. If your student is reading, the success rate of them performance in school is starting to demonstrate a substantial difference between students who do read at home and for pleasure, and those students that don't. And that's tough for me, because I did a lot of TV watching when I was in middle school, or a lot of playing of basketball. I needed to read maybe a little bit more. But I just wanted to thank you guys for all being here and dedicating your Saturday. And don't ever be afraid, as I said, and I'll keep saying, don't ever be afraid to contact the school if you have concerns. That's the only way that we know what we're doing is wrong, and that's the only way that we know, that's the only way we'll know how to get better and where to get better.
Thank you again, Master Derose. Thank you, Brother Ayman. Thank you, Sister Nafisa. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi. Also thank you, all of you. Barakallah fikum.
And thank you again, and let's give a great applause to Mr. Shawn, Derose, and Dr. And feel free to come and ask your question to one of the faculty, either I or Dr. Shawn Derose. Thank you so much.